I don't know what the problem with Nylander is because I've seen him play.
I know what it is.
I like him. I really have no clue why everybody is so hard on the guy. He's not a bad player.
He's inconsistent, Giancarlo. That's the problem. Like
Which Nylander
he
we
fades
talking
very
about?
quickly.
Which Nylander are we talking about now? 'Cause they
Alexander
all have the
Alex.
same
Brother.
DNA.
Alex.
To me, they're all the same. But okay, Alex. All right, just sorry.
Hi, and welcome to the show. This episode, we talk about the big news out of Pittsburgh as they fire their president, general manager, and assistant GM after a disappointing season in which they missed the playoffs. We also discuss why Brian Burke wasn't able to make his mark on this team and what the future holds for him. And lastly, we discuss what went wrong with the team on the ice and what needs to happen to turn things around. Is it fair to place all the blame on Burke and Hextall for this dismal season, or is this issue deeper rooted in ownership? Does Brian Burke stay on TV forever after this, or will he somehow find his way back into team management in the future? Does the new team management continue to push for immediate success, or is this team poised for a teardown and rebuild? We're back and ready to share our views and opinions for anybody that wants to listen. So please, take a load off, relax, and welcome to Hockey for Fanatics.
You must be happy.
Well,
Ding
yeah,
dong, the witches are dead.
the Witchers are dead.
How did you hear the news? He just popped up on your Instagram, or do you have some inside scoop or something that we don't?
Oh yeah, I was talking to the Penguins directly. I was talking to LeBron James.
Nice.
Nice. You're like, get these losers out of here, or
Yeah,
else I
it's-
will cheer for another team.
This isn't the LeBron way.
Why are you bringing up LeBron? I'm missing the joke. Like, is he part of ownership now or
I think
something?
he is, yeah.
Yeah, he owns part of Fenway, which owns the Penguins.
Don't you remember? He was
I
wearing the
see.
Penguins jersey. I kept on bothering Giancarlo by putting a picture of LeBron with a Pens
Oh.
jersey in the chat.
Just brutal. Just brutal.
Oh, I see. Okay.
What's worse, LeBron being the owner of your team or Ron Hextall, an ex-Crier, your GM?
Well,
What a year for the Pittsburgh Penguins.
I think they both worked in favor of hurting you. I think it was it was a mix.
Absolutely.
I don't know. At the end of the day, I think that was it was just a weird situation because we've said it before. Like, that is not a Burke team, and Burke did not act like himself all year. Like, you never once heard peep from him, and that's not the Burke way. So I wonder if something was up there.
well, maybe it's just him letting him. Like we talked about, we did talk about this before, but the reality is these are facts. An operating model of a team is variable. Every team has a different way of operating. So if you that, and I remember asking the question, like, how would you like to do things if you were president? And if I was president, I would still, like you said, Tomas, I would have been involved to the point where I said, this is the style of team that I want to be, and I will give you the autonomy to go and get the guys that you want, but it's got to fit. Any guy you get needs to do A, B, or C. You know what I mean? And it has to fit that mold of what the higher level vision of what a president should provide. So Burke just laid off, I guess. He didn't really put his fingerprints on this team.
He's going back to TV.
Yeah, makes sense.
No.
Makes sense. Is it already a done deal? Is he already going back to being an analyst or whatever?
That's what I was reading, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah,
I wonder
but
if
you
he'll
know what?
comment on whoever replaces him. You know what I mean?
I'm sure it'll get brought up because I'm sure that somebody's going to want to hear his opinion on it.
Of course. Like, imagine Dubas replaces him in like a week and a half, for example, right? Like, you know, everyone and their mom is going to be like, okay, so what is your opinion, Brian Burke? Like, he's going to be front and center.
I just think he's become irrelevant. Like, I don't know how much he's going to be good for TV after this collapse with Pittsburgh. I mean, I think that he's kind of put himself in a bit of a grave.
No, dude, like there's a need for that type of commentary, like so badly right now because there's no Don Cherry. So he brings that element, but he's actually because he's like pro LGBTQ and like he's got those other things, he's safe, right? Like he won't get canceled because of those other aspects. But
Yeah.
he's very much old school. So that he'll bring that old school opinion people like.
Do you think he's
But
done with being involved with a hockey team though?
Yeah. Yeah,
the
there's
only
no team that would take him. There, you just
that,
why would you?
that's not true. I could see like if Houston gets a team, like if Houston gets a team, or if
Yeah.
Arizona comes calling
Yeah.
for actual like leadership because they're a complete joke. Like they're run like mom and pop diner. So if they get like they're looking for someone with experience, like remember Brian Burke was like head of US hockey, right? That means something, especially down in the States.
It's true.
And he still has a presence. Like he's not some nobody. He still has a presence and I could guarantee you if he gets into that room with one of these owners, he could talk his way into getting a position. Like it'll be very easy for someone like him because he's just got an incredible background. I don't know, like I said, this whole Pittsburgh situation for me, it didn't fit right. Like, just I don't understand. Like, I don't know if he was brought in and then like above him brought in Hextall,
No, I read about
and
that. They were brought in at the same time. So I did read about that after we spoke about it on the pod, and I found out that
okay,
they were literally hired at the same time. So I don't know if Burke had any say at all with
hmm
Hextall. You know what I mean? But it was essentially them being hired at the same time.
yeah, I don't know. I don't think we'll hear from him because I guarantee you he won't be shy to explain his side of the story.
Yeah, well, I
You
think
know,
he'd be
he won't pull
he's
punches.
yeah, he won't, but he's also been around long enough to I think he's a big boy. He's gonna say he
Yeah.
failed, right? He's gonna say he failed. I don't think that
He'll
he's gonna
he'll,
make
he'll be the
point fingers.
first one to own up to it. And
Yeah.
before this hire, I've always been a huge Brian Burke fan. I remember listening to his audiobook and I fell in love with his audiobook. Like, and then he came to Pittsburgh and I was so excited. So I mean, I don't really put all this on him because I don't know how much say he really had. And with the whole sale with Fenway happening, there was just too many hands in the bucket with opinions and who was running the team.
You
And
you might be onto something there, GC, because I was just thinking like they hired these guys together and they fired these guys together. So what does that tell you?
yeah, it's a
hmm
bit of a big mess. Like, I think that it was just everything was a big mess, and the selling of the team with the hiring of new GMs, just all the timing was just it was all off, and it probably all led to a bit of a disaster on its own. And I don't know I don't know who the boss was in Pittsburgh. I don't know who was running things. I don't know who was the one making the calls, and eh, especially after Fenway came. As soon as Fenway came, it seemed like things went
Hmm.
sideways
Yeah,
really
yeah,
quick.
it makes sense. And if, like this Fenway thing, this happened after. Like, did they were they the ones that
After.
hired Burke? They, okay, so
No,
okay,
after.
so it happened after, which means that there was a previous ownership team that hired these guys. So if you think about it, there was maybe an issue. Like again, I know this is pure speculation, but considering they cleaned house like this, there must have been some type of philosophical difference between the ownership and the presidency and the GM. Especially if we say like what Burke isn't being Burke, you know. So maybe they put the handcuffs on him. Maybe they said, yeah, no, you can't do this, you can't do that, or whatever. And then Burke is like, okay, whatever, you're calling the shots. I'll just show up for work and take my paycheck. And like Tommaso said, I'll go find something else at the end of this. And when I have an interview with those guys, I'll tell them straight out what the problem was.
Yeah, and it wouldn't
hmm
be the first time that Burke's been in that situation. I think it was in Vancouver that he was in a similar, not Vancouver, Halifax. Was it Halifax that he was? Not Halifax, Hartford.
Yeah.
Hartford. That's who I was thinking of. He was in a similar situation at Hartford. So I mean, it's not his first rodeo being in that kind of situation, I think, and I don't know. I just think there was just probably way too many hands in the bucket because you got Crosby who's got an opinion too, and for sure he's right to it. Sullivan also has a very strong opinion, and I know that him and Hextall were big time butting heads near the trade deadline there because they both wanted different targets. Um,
Hmm.
so
Are
it's
you
hard.
surprised that Sullivan survived it?
No, I'm not surprised. So I wanted Sullivan to be relieved as well, and it's not because I think he's a bad coach. I think he's probably top 5 in the league. But I just think that it doesn't hurt to move on after a while. But this guy is loved there. I mean, he's loved, and he is a great coach, and that was something that the guys in Fenway brought up in the press conference today. That his job is safe for now, but once the new ownership, not ownership, like the new
Management.
GM and stuff, management is hired, it'll be up to them whether they choose to stay with Sullivan or not. But Sullivan's
Yeah.
going to have an impact on who is brought in. So I don't know. I don't see Sullivan going anywhere.
Keep
I
in
think,
mind, though, that Sullivan's contract doesn't kick until after next season. That extension he signed, so
well,
he's
and
locked in. He's locked in for four or five more years.
we talked about this though in the last pod or pod before that, and I mean, one of you guys brought up a good point that the second somebody signs him,
Yeah.
Pittsburgh doesn't have to pay him anymore. And I mean, that guy's not going to last under free agency. Like,
Oh, by the way, Capitals just fired Peter Laviolette.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Oh, you saw that coming.
yeah, that
He'll
had to
he'll
happen.
be a big. The next couple days, Calgary should be making moves too. Like, and there should be some big changes all around.
Yeah, I guess they
Yeah.
better get their housekeeping done before the playoffs start. That's usually what they're trying to do. Sweep it under the rug.
Oh yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
Calgary, Pittsburgh, and Washington are probably the biggest failures this season, right?
Well,
What?
you saw that dynamic. Like, this is the first time Ovechkin and Crosby have not been in the playoffs. Like, like almost. I don't remember what it was.
Well,
It's
for
something ridiculous.
Washington, it's only been 8 years, but Crosby, it's been 16.
Crazy.
But I think it's it's obviously the first time the both of them are not in it
Mhm.
because Crosby's been there.
Crosby still probably had something to say about Sullivan staying too. If I'm the owner, I'm talking to Sid and I'm saying we're making this change and what do you think of the coach? And Sid's gonna probably say, yeah, he's fine. Like I don't know. I'm just trying to read between the lines, right? Like Sullivan stayed, he's survived somehow. So
For now.
Plus,
But you know how
it's the
GMs are,
contract.
right? No, but GMs, it depends. Like, if GMs, they usually want their guy, right? Like,
course.
that's how they usually want. So I don't know if for example, if the speculation about Dubas is true, and Leafs go out early and Dubas hops over there, you don't think Dubas is going to want to bring his guy?
enough with
You don't
this
think he's
Dubas
going to want to
thing.
bring Skeef with him?
We're gonna try your best to make this about the Leafs. It's not gonna be about
No, but I'm
Dubas.
just saying, like, that's what the
Yeah.
speculation is, right?
There's
That
no
they
way.
desperately want Dubas to go.
Well,
I don't know.
I guess while we're on the subject, Giancarlo, what do you can say Dubas if you want, but what's on your mind as far as the next GM? Like who's on your mind? Anybody other than him?
I don't have anybody on my radar, and like even Dubas, like it's a nice little rumor, but I don't see that happening, and I don't know how sold I am on that. I did admit that I like Dubas's what he did this year in the offseason or for the trade deadline there for the Leafs, but I mean he's had a couple rough years before that, and I still don't agree with the contract re-signings, and he's still a young GM. I think he's still got mistakes to be made, so I don't know. I don't know how much he fits into what Pittsburgh needs right now. Pittsburgh just needs somebody who's going to come in and goes to work right away and somehow salvages the next 2 years, and that's not an easy task.
What about a guy like Mark Bergevin? Would you take Bergevin?
Played there.
No,
Played there.
no.
You wouldn't take him?
No, especially after everything I've heard you talk about him, I wouldn't
Well,
want
But
to
Mike,
check that.
but Mike never had the
It's
Crosby and the Malkin.
it's
That's
true. He missed the talent. He just didn't commit to acquiring the talent.
yeah.
I mean, he had Price.
Exactly, but the problem is that he didn't surround him with anything else. Yeah, so you got to know when you need more. The right thing would have been to trade him, but I
He's with
understand.
LA, right?
He is in LA as I believe he's like either an assistant or a consultant. He's not the GM.
Oh please, he's on the beach half the time.
Yeah, he is. You can tell. It would probably take a lot of money for him to come to Pittsburgh, but I don't know. I'm just trying to think of a guy that's got experience.
That was a good one, Mike. I think that is a good one because they need someone. They need like a closer, like a Burke, actually, right? But
Yeah,
They need a Burke
obviously,
in his prime.
yeah.
that's why it made no sense with this Burke thing. I guess we'll see. The only common the people that have survived this obviously is the ownership. So it's going to be one of those things where we're going to really see what their plan is all about.
I'm
Right.
sure Fenway has some sort of plan on who they have in mind, and if it's Dubas, then we're probably going to be waiting a while to find out. But if it's not Dubas, then I don't think it's going to be a long time before we hear the replacements.
When is Dubas's contract up? Not to suggest it's Dubas, but
No.
when is
It's
it
up. It's already up.
No,
As
but
soon as regular season ended, that's it.
is that the
As
way
soon
it
as the
works?
Leafs are done,
So are you
yeah.
serious? Right now, he could be hired by the Pittsburgh Penguins right now. That makes no sense.
Well, I
He-
mean,
he could be hired during it if he wanted to. Remember,
During the playoffs?
Burke got brought in mid-season. Remember,
Yeah, but this
from
is
Anaheim.
we're talking playoffs here, man. Like this is different.
I know. So the chances
Playoffs?
of someone leaving a team during the playoffs is zero, right?
Why though?
Like
That's
I
why I
doubt
asked the
someone
question.
would do it.
Well, that's why I asked the question. Like,
I-
is he technically available now? Is he technically available?
well, I don't know if they have a
I-
July 1st thing as well. I don't know how their contracts work.
Yeah.
All we know is this is
Yeah.
the last. Maybe it's when the Leafs are done that contract's up. That could be it. I don't know how it works.
Yeah, probably.
But-
Plus, you would never do that. It's such a bad look on you, like to leave the team you built. Like you literally built
Yeah, but
this
if-
team, and now you're gonna leave them
I-
during the
I- I
The
playoffs.
just-
money would have to be stupid, or they'd have to have some sort of agreement on paper, and then it would be announced right after the playoffs.
I think
Or-
I think there's a contract already in place. They're just waiting. I don't know why they're waiting, but they're waiting because, in my opinion, I don't think Shannon is going anywhere. So maybe it's above Shanny's that's saying he has to win a round just for
It
optic
is.
reasons. Because really,
Yeah.
Shanny loves this guy. I think the organization loves him. I think that maybe they're just worried that if they lose, they have to make a change, right? And sometimes that's the wrong thing. Maybe you're getting rid of the wrong guy.
I think that Dubas has a contract ready in both Toronto and Pittsburgh, and it'll be a matter of money
Look at you.
and where he wants to go. I'm like, if we're seeing all the rumors about it, obviously he's seeing it and he's hearing it and he's involved in it, right? So, there's something that he knows that we don't know, and I've heard that they're planning on offering him like a boatload of money. Like a lot of money.
Yeah, but who cares? You're not gonna outbid MLSE, man. Like that's not gonna happen. MLSE is going to match anything that Fenway can. The only difference is, do they want him? That's all it is. That's the only question
another-
right now.
Exactly. Because what track record does he have? He's won nothing.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
went over
like,
we went over
you
his
take- yeah,
deficiencies for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, take away this deadline. For me, he gets an F if you remove this deadline.
Well, I guess Fenway would be looking at it like, okay, we're gonna bring him in as a closer, for the next couple of years, and then he's gonna have.
Closer.
He didn't even start a game yet. He's a closer.
Well, I know, but I'm saying that's what they're probably thinking, and then they're thinking the long term they're gonna have him have full control of building the team from bottom down, right?
Oof.
Because
I
a
think I will
couple
say
years
he
he's
did-
got nothing.
This core was not built by him.
Yeah.
So he didn't really build anything here. He just added pieces along the way.
Well,
Yeah, like
inherited
he
the
didn't
core.
create anything.
No.
He had everything in place. The only thing he did was add a couple players of his style, right? Like his philosophy in terms, and he changed all that like at this deadline. So
Mhm.
if I'm a guy that's hiring him, I'm a little bit confused about like which one are you? Like which Dubas are you? Are you the guy that says that physicality and leadership doesn't matter, or are you the guy that is currently I'm talking to? I don't know. There's a lot of questions I would be asking if I was hiring Dubas.
Well, and another thing for Dubas's decision, and I know obviously being in Toronto is very intriguing because of the core, and he's getting to be the GM of a guy like Matthews and Marner, but this would be a huge opportunity for him to be working with Lemieux and Crosby, and that's not something that just comes floating down the river all the time. That's a massive opportunity for him to put on his resume. So
I'd rather
that's
be working with Matthews because Crosby's at the.
but
If you were telling
maybe
me
you would,
21-year-old Crosby, no, but
No,
if you're telling me 20, even 24-year-old Crosby, right now Crosby and Malkin, they're at the end of their career. Like they're at the end of their career. Like right now, they're both healthy, and you still miss the playoffs.
yeah,
Like
but I'm
that's
not
not a good
talking.
situation to come into.
I'm not talking that. I'm talking the business side of it. He's gonna be getting to work with Lemieux, which is huge. Getting to everything that Lemieux knows. Lemieux's a very smart person in this business, and getting to pick his brain and be in the same room as Lemieux, that'll be something that really intrigues him. And then Crosby's still. I'm not talking from a playing standpoint. Like he's learning from Lemieux too, and he's probably going to get into management when he's done his career as well. And it's something that would be intriguing for anybody to want to work with. Who wouldn't want to work with Sidney Crosby? He's one of the most respected players in the league, right?
I see what you're saying.
In terms of building your team, whatever, yeah, who wouldn't pick Matthews? You have a 25-year-old superstar. But I'm talking from the business point of view. I don't see him passing up a chance to work with Lemieux and Crosby. That
Sure.
would be very tempting for any.
I guess so. I guess it depends what motivates somebody to take a job, right? Like, do you want to? I understand what you're saying. Maybe I'm more old school, where a GM wants to build something that turns into a winner. So on that aspect, I would say it would be harder to envision him in Pittsburgh. But as you're saying, this would be more of a business thing. So yeah, I can totally see Dubas doing that. Absolutely.
It's an interesting situation for him because if he comes to Pittsburgh, he's got 2 years to try and get this team into a championship team again. If he can somehow pull that off, and he were to win a cup with this team, he would push his career so far up especially because they missed the playoffs this year. Like it would be huge,
So
massive.
okay, so while we're on, like, just to sort of put the past regime to bed, where do you feel they went wrong, Giancarlo? Because you're the closest to the team. We only see it on the outside. I have my own opinions. We all have our own opinions, but I want to hear yours first about what went wrong with this team.
Well, it starts right at the beginning of the problem was goaltending. That was the problem from the get-go. That was a problem last year. It was a problem the year before that. It was a problem the year. It's been a problem since Murray left.
Yeah, but
Jari
okay,
hasn't been
I'm gonna push you.
consistent.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I am gonna push you on this because I have like texts from you saying that Jari's amazing and Jari is awesome.
He was. And Jari, I made a comparison in the chat earlier to Murray. These two goalies are very similar. They're great when they're healthy. They're like lights out when they're healthy goalies, but they play hurt a lot and they're always hurt. So
Mhm.
when they're playing hurt, they're not 100% and they're garbage. And
S-
unfortunately, that makes a huge difference. If you're
So
not
when
100% and
so
you're
when did
garbage,
Jari become the guy that you said this is not the guy to stand behind? Like, at what point in time did you see
I,
that?
I would say his second full season with being the starting goalie.
Which was
That's when
how long?
I
A couple years ago or 3 years
couple
ago?
years now, yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
about 3 years. Yeah, about 3 years. I was like sold on him when he was fantastic in the AHL. He was fantastic as a young kid, but he couldn't stay healthy, and it reminded me of Murray because Murray's the exact same way. Murray's great when he's healthy, but these guys, I don't know why they can't stay healthy, but they can't.
Yeah,
So I mean,
he's never really played a lot. Like, I'm looking at his track record, right? Like, he's played
no, he misses a lot of time, and then
he played
Casey DeSmith is
58
another one.
games. That's his top. And then previously it was 39 games, 33 games. So they did roll the dice on this guy, Giancarlo. Like, I never really saw him as a starting goalie myself, but you never really you only see the guy a couple times, and he either impresses you or he doesn't. He didn't impress me, and that was sort of the way I walked away from that. So
He had games where like he was lights out and he would steal the game and stuff like that. But then there was
yeah.
a lot of games where he couldn't save a beach ball, and
Well, to his words, he said he was injured pretty much all year, and it affected his performance.
that
That's
goes to
coming
what
from
I
his
said
mouth.
though. That's
Well,
that's the same thing as Murray. These guys play when they're not 100% and they're garbage.
well,
When they're
as a
100%,
GM,
they're
Then why
good.
wouldn't the GM
exactly,
address that? We were saying
exactly,
it all
Dave.
year. Why
Yeah,
aren't they going after a goalie?
exactly,
But
There
Dave.
were goalies available.
this is my point, right? Like this is the problem. If they go and get Corpusalo, I don't think Corpusalo is an all-star, but he would have been
Oh, he's a
dirt
good
cheap.
goalie. He's a good goalie, man. Yeah.
Well, but I think that he would have been enough to help this team make the playoffs.
For sure. Look what he did in LA.
But that's what I mean.
LA
Like
went unbeaten the last like X number of games.
well, and this is why it falls back to that. And that was an easy fix at the trade deadline. This wasn't addressed at the beginning of the year. They went into the year with Jari and DeSmith. DeSmith is another one. He's a great backup, but he gets hurt a lot. He's always hurt. So it's like I don't know. You're juggling between two hurt goalies, and then you're bringing in the third string, and then he's not going to win you games because he's a third string. He's just there as an emergency. He's not there to win you big games. So this team just fell apart in net, and then the
So-
bottom six all season was just atrocious, and it wasn't. I can't say it wasn't addressed in the offseason because they took their risks. They went with Carter. They went with Kapanen. They gave Kapanen a 2-year contract in the offseason. So they went with Kapanen. Then they brought back in Heinen, which wasn't too bad. He had an okay year for like a fourth line kind of role, but Kapanen definitely didn't pan out at that money. Carter has been a disaster.
Yeah.
The bottom six is just awful.
Age
Like,
matters, man. Carter's 37 years old. Like it doesn't last forever. Like you gotta
yeah,
know.
but you don't go give him that kind of money. If
Well, I agree.
like
Yeah.
you don't commit to him, and I think they gave it to him last season during the season. Like it was at a time where they didn't need to extend the guy. There was no reason to give him money yet.
But he played well though. Like when he came, like he
And
was.
that's why he got
like,
paid.
Yeah, right. That's just how it works. These guys come in contract time and they play their butts off. They get that contract and now they sort of like lax into it.
There was no reason to extend him, just because he was playing well. That was, you're next Crier. I'm gonna give you a deal because I'm also next Crier. So let's just be Criers forever. That's all I can think of. That's why Hextall went and rushed that contract because you look at like Vancouver, and they can't even sign a guy on time. But then Carter is getting signed right away. Like it makes absolutely no sense. So those are the two big things.
No, I know you hate the Flyers and I know you hate all that situation, but the realistic situation was they got a veteran in as their third line center. He did produce, right, at the time of negotiation and so forth. He looked like a really good fit with the team, so they took a chance on him, right? Did they swing and miss?
You still
Yes, right?
You still don't give that age of a player that kind of money. Like he was just
Yeah,
shy of
that
what
was-
4 million, I think, or no, he's at 3.1.
That's not brutal.
Yeah, I guess it's not. It's not brutal. It's just
Like but he's not what he was. But I mean, Jeff Carter was a
tough.
sniper. Like, what are you paying this guy
No,
for?
but he's not the reason why you guys didn't perform the
Yeah.
last bit. Like I know you say that Crosby and Malkin were great. I gotta give you some numbers here on the last 20 games. Crosby, last 9 games, 2 goals, 4 assists. Crosby, last 20 games, 6 goals. Malkin, last 20 games, 4 goals. Like those are your 2 best players during the
about
last 20 games of the year,
what about
and you're
assists?
pushing hard. Like okay, but
No, it makes a
like-
difference because Crosby doesn't always go for the goal. He's not a Matthews.
But who's scoring? Who's
Gensel?
scoring if those 2 guys aren't
Gensel?
scoring?
Yeah, Gensel's the
Gensel?
only. Gensel's the
Gensel
guy.
led the team in goals.
But that's it. Like you
So
gotta
Zucker
have those 2
scoring,
guys.
Zucker scoring, Russ was scoring,
They-
Raquel
they
was
have-
scoring.
they have
We
quite
have
a few-
530 goal scorers.
Well, not-
What else do you want from a team?
Yeah, I
530 goal scorers.
I don't really look at the stats that way. I know stats matter, but and I'm not going to pick on Zucker and Brian Rust, but I'm not a fan of those guys. Even Raquel, I like Raquel. I know when they acquired him, but that was like that guy should be your sixth best forward, Raquel, right? And that guy, the reason why I liked him is he played in Anaheim, right? He had that experience. I don't know if he was around when they won the cup, but he was a good goal scorer there for a long time. So I like that acquisition. But these other guys, I don't know. They don't. I try to keep it simple when I look at a team and I say how good are they, and I just literally write the names down. And I know that maybe there's a sexiness or appeal to some names over others, but Brian Rust, I don't know what kind of a player this guy is. I never.
No, exactly.
Zucker,
Brian
Like, you know
Rust.
what?
Brian Rust.
I just like to
is,
keep things even keel. If you're going to use the narrative like that's been used a lot here, like why don't these people perform like Crosby, right? Like that's been said a billion times. Okay, what happened? Where were you? Like, how did you lose
Oh, you're
to
saying
Chicago?
you're saying that
And Crosby
Crosby's
did
got to
shit on
shoulder
the
the
stick.
load. Yeah, it's fair.
Like it's got to work both ways.
It's
You
true.
can't
You can't.
you can't give them the all the accolades and stuff, but then they literally did nothing the
Yeah.
last 20 games, both of them.
I don't see
Like
the team
I don't know,
around them,
man.
though.
Like they got to come up and win those games.
You gave us the goal totals, but the assist totals still matter. How many assists did Crosby have in the last 20 games?
That I didn't look
Because
at, but I'm sure he
It
got
makes a
his.
difference. Crosby's not Matthews.
I'm not.
Crosby does everything. He doesn't just score.
This
he
is
does
where,
everything
and
up
this
there.
is where I'll give Dubas props over like Hextall, because what Dubas does is he does. You got to give Dubas some credit in the sense that he finds guys that will be better, or they'll be sort of a a better return on investment is a good way to put it. So he gets a Bunting, right? A Bunting was, how much was he making when he was, how much is he making now?
Less than $1 million.
That's
900K.
that is pretty ridiculous. Okay, so you have to give Dubas credit for finding guys like that, and he constantly does. He constantly looks for these Laffertys. He looks for there was another guy, the college guy. I think it was Godet or whatever. It didn't work out, but those are the guys that he's throwing risk at. It's low risk, potentially high return.
He also has to, Mike, because
Yeah, because the cap space, right?
Maybe he would give
But
up.
look,
Maybe he would give up some cash, right?
Right, but look at Pitt. Pitt is the same thing. They got
No, I
guys
get it.
that are
That's
top
true.
heavy, and he's not
And this
finding the
goes-
guys that are going to help them, right?
And going back to what Tommaso said, if playing with Crosby's, that's amazing. That's an amazing thing to put on your resume. But it doesn't seem like he was able to attract anyone to get there, Hextall, right? So I know what you're saying. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Hextall was a mess. He was a mess.
Yeah.
He was a mess in Philly, which was strange that he went to Pittsburgh. It's not like his resume was great to begin with. So
He started off as this big, huge thing when he was in LA, right? Because I remember when the Leafs were looking at somebody, his name kept popping up because he was one of the most in-demand people in the league, right? And I don't know, like his whole vision, like the whole thing in Pittsburgh, I don't know, like it just, Giancarlo said it a bunch of times, it was just a mess, right? Like just, I think the problem with Pittsburgh is you can't go in half-ass, and they did. They went in half-ass. You can't have a team with Crosby and Malkin and just sort of hope for the best. You gotta load up. You gotta sell. You gotta put as much talent around them as possible and try to win a cup. Like just making the playoffs isn't an achievement if you have Sidney Crosby. You got to be pushing for the cup. And I think that was the problem. They were scared to use up all their assets because they didn't know where they were going to go, and they didn't know how it was going to be.
You got to commit.
But you can't be like that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, you got to commit, or you like shit or get off the pot.
Yeah.
If you're not going to put in all this investment into it, then you got to do the other thing. You got to sell the veterans.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this with Giancarlo. Like he doesn't want that. Like that's never going to happen. He wants to go down with the ship, so to speak, with these guys, and like that's very admirable. But that is organization disaster.
You're digging yourself a deeper hole when it's over.
Yeah, you're going to you're going to be feeling that for like 6 to 8 years following that. Like,
Yeah.
it's just a huge mess. Like, when Leafs failed to trade Sundin, like, that was such a massive miss that it affected them for years.
But the
You know,
difference
like,
between that is how much cups did Sundin win?
and I get that, but like, look at Taves,
Everyone
right? Look
gets
at all the cups
it
he
happens,
won,
Giancarlo.
but
It
look
happens.
what he's leaving with nothing. Like, Chicago got nothing from Taves.
Which
Nothing.
doesn't make sense. You would think that they would hang on to Taves, and let's say they do get Berard. It's a perfect mentor.
Yeah.
Perfect. You know what I mean? Like,
but
Yeah.
Another big
It's
difference
weird.
between Taves and Crosby and Malkin is Taves is actually contemplating retirement. That's why he
I
wasn't
don't
traded.
think he is personally. The way it
It
was worded,
sounded like he was coming back.
yeah, man. The way it was worded, Giancarlo, they basically just said he's played his last
Yeah, but
game
health
for
is an issue.
Chicago. Of course it is, but
Sure.
what I again reading between the lines here, if he was going to retire, he'd say I'm going to retire or I'm going to think about
Exactly.
retirement. I never heard that word. All I heard
he
was
hasn't.
that's played my last game for Chicago. Which, if I'm going to deduce something from that, I'm going to hear that okay, health is an issue for sure. He's going to use the summer. He's going to get as well as he can, and then he's going to see what's out there. And if he goes to
Yeah.
play with a Colorado, just throwing it out there, for less money, he's going to say, sure, this is a better fit for me. I don't have to carry the load. Because the one thing about Taves is he puts a lot of pressure on himself too. Like, he's always been that kind of guy. He's always carried the load, and
Yeah.
he can't be that guy anymore. So if he goes to a team that has guys that are going to do that, and he's just going to go in and pick his spots as a 3C, I think it's going to be a perfect spot. Colorado's just one team I threw out there. I'm willing to bet there are at least 2 or 3 other teams that would be a good fit for him.
Any team.
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
even Pittsburgh. Get rid of Carter and bring in Taves.
sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, he'd be perfect
Yeah,
anywhere.
it's
Like,
true.
Montreal to help
Hey,
Suzuki and those
He
guys.
speaks
He'd
French.
be beautiful.
He speaks
I've
French.
Yeah.
heard.
Yeah.
I've heard he may even take his time and not even, sign right away.
Yeah, he
might
may
even
get well.
take
Or,
half the year, right?
yeah, it's possible.
Make sure he's 100%, and then see
As
which
long
team's
as
contending.
Yeah,
to
as
see.
long as he's at a minimum salary, he will not have a problem finding a job.
That's true.
That's the key.
It's true.
Like,
made
if
his
he's
money.
asking
He's made his money.
if he's asking 3.5, 4 million, completely different, right?
No.
If he's coming in at 1 million, every single team in the league will be like, please come. I have a locker room ready for you.
Right.
Maybe Pittsburgh.
I'm telling you, why not?
Look, as much as like another thing on this is like, I understand how much Taves has won as well, so like he does deserve the recognition, but he's no Crosby and he's no Malkin either. I would still take Malkin over him.
Mm,
Come
Maybe
on,
that'll
man.
start a whole other bucket list, but especially at their ages, Jonathan Taves is nowhere near where Crosby and Malkin still are.
you
Talking
can't
points wise.
you can't look
You're
at it.
talking points.
Yeah,
right?
it's not just.
I'm talking production. Yeah,
Yeah.
Taves is a great leader. I think he's always been. He's probably top 3 in the league still for leading. He's
Yeah.
a phenomenal captain.
Which matters, man. Nowadays.
It absolutely matters. But I'm just talking, when it was trade deadline time, between health and his contract, he wasn't appealing. He wasn't nearly as appealing. It was going to cost too much to get another team to eat all of his contract.
Yeah, but now
and
he's
it's
gonna.
just-
Now he's gonna
And
be
there was
free.
questions with health.
Now he's gonna be free. So.
Oh yeah, if he
definitely
chooses
less
to
risk.
play,
Yeah.
anybody will want him. Any contending team would love to add him for a cheap. But I don't know. I don't know how much he's gonna want if he comes back. Like, there's question marks, but
Yeah, sure.
it's just it's hard to compare him to Crosby and Malkin. Having him move on.
No.
Or
So
Crosby,
I'm
Malkin
only
moving on.
comparing the way that it ended for that situation.
No,
That's all.
I know
right?
that's what you're comparing. That's what I'm saying though. Like, it's hard to compare that because they're too different. It's too different. It's I know that you can kind of say, okay, they both won the same amount of times and that, but I don't know. The ship in Chicago sailed too for years.
It really.
right?
Yeah.
It sailed fast because they didn't have good cap management. They traded their star players.
Giancarlo, when was the last time Pittsburgh won past the first round?
After the year they won the cup, but it doesn't matter.
When was that? I don't even
But-
remember what year.
What
it
do you
was.
mean, Giancarlo? Come on.
They've been competitive.
Let's talk brass
Chicago
tacks.
hasn't been competitive. Chicago hasn't
And neither has been
competitive.
Pittsburgh. and neither is Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh hasn't been competitive in a long time.
Since they
bro.
went to they beat Ottawa. They won the cup when they beat Ottawa in that game 7. Like how many overtimes?
Yeah.
That was
Yeah, what year
Kunitz,
was
right?
that?
Chris Kunitz scored in overtime. That was the last time.
Yeah,
they won.
what year was that?
2017.
I
When they
remember.
went to the
Exact-
finals.
I
That was
remember-
2016,
but-
17.
I was
Well,
at a.
okay, but
I was
that's
at a
what I'm
communion.
saying,
I think
guys.
Giancarlo was with me. I think that day. Yeah.
If I'm talking about any team out there, if you haven't, like, if this is your track record, you haven't won like anything of significance in 6 years, that's not good production.
Yeah.
Like, I know you're biased because you're looking at it like, these guys won me my cup, and that's like
You're
the
loyal.
pinnacle of success.
There's loyalty. There's loyalty. Yeah, I understand.
For sure,
Well,
and
you
there's
know what?
nothing wrong.
The teams that we're talking about, Capitals, Chicago, Penguins, the common denominator after their cups
Yeah.
and their long stretches of making playoffs, they never had those top picks. That's why I got to give
LA?
kudos to Boston, because
Yeah.
Boston, they somehow seem to draft well, right? It's all about drafting now. And look at I always ask Giancarlo, like, where are your prospects? You guys have nothing. You have nothing.
Well, they've
Chicago's had
traded
nothing.
away all their
Chicago-
prospects and picks.
Wow.
Wow.
For
But
what?
who's
though?
difference too.
well, what prospects have they traded that have actually been
A
factory?
pretty big one who who's probably going to be shortlisted for the Vezina this year and would have solved all our goaltending problems.
Oh, you're talking about
Philip Gustafsson, there's one. Callan Anderson, that's another one.
But
Both
in
of them
general,
are Minnesota.
the Penguins have not drafted well. A lot of it has to do with where they're drafting. But like I said, Boston seems to fucking pluck these guys and fit into their system, right? And it seems like Pittsburgh, Washington, they just never got there. Now Chicago's totally stripping it down because they've never built either. You look at Chicago, who have they had? Nothing. You can't just rely on these old guys to keep carrying you all the way through. It
Yeah,
doesn't work.
I'm looking
Yeah.
at their blue line now. I know I mentioned this before. Who are these guys, Giancarlo? This blue line stinks. I don't know what to tell you. Guys, without
It
looking at
is bad.
cap friendly, can you tell me 2 defensemen on the Pittsburgh Penguins?
That's not Petrie and not Letang.
There you go. Right. Name
That's-
name the other 4.
I mean, 2 of them have won 2 Stanley Cups, so I don't know why that they're so mystery.
Who did they win cups with? Pittsburgh?
Yeah,
I don't know what to tell you. I'm asking the other guys because you're the guy that's been there. So all I'm saying is I don't fear any of these guys on this page when I'm looking at it. Something needs to be there where you're like, this guy's going to be there for me and he's going to carry the load, or he's going to be there to stop the other team. Something. He's going to throw big hits. Who the heck is Chad Ruedel, or he's the entry level guy.
Chad Ruedel is just a journeyman.
Jan Ruda, Marcus Pedersen. Oh my goodness.
Jan Ruda won how many cups with Tampa?
He was, yeah,
What are
but
you
he was
talking about?
sheltered by He was sheltered by Hedman. Come on,
Exactly.
he's not a good defenseman.
Exactly.
Ruda's been hurt almost all season. Like I think he's only played maybe half a season, so I
Oh,
couldn't really
okay,
get a
so
full
You
analysis.
see
on
what he's
him.
like without Hedman. He's not the same. It's like how Cece was when he was playing with Carlson, right? You take him away from that big defenseman, they're on their own after. Then they're not going to carry it. Nah, I agree with Mike.
No,
Your
but-
team is decimated on the blue line, just horrible.
But what Giancarlo was alluding to with the injury to Ruda, I think that's where I was going to go when you asked me about the defense for Pittsburgh,
Mhm.
because their best guy scares the crap out of you
Yeah,
because you don't know
if
he's going to disappear for the whole season.
if he's gonna get hurt
right?
eating pancakes. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a very scary situation to think like your number one guy, like when he's going, like that team is going. Like he's crucial to that team. Power play, like he's 5-on-5. He's everything. He's a fantastic defenseman. But everyone knows like his health is just so sporadic, and you don't know what you're going to get from year to year. And that's a very scary situation, right? Like I don't know. I really don't know if like you can just take another risk with this team. It's a scary
But
situation.
it's funny
Like,
because their top 3 guys, if you would have told Giancarlo, your 3 guys are going to be healthy pretty much almost the whole year, you said, sign me up. Let's add guys and let's go for it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
Letang
but
Did the
missed half
opposite.
the year though. I think
No, but you know what I mean. They're all ready. Like they're all ready to
not
go.
happening.
They have all had great years, and you guys did nothing to add to help them out.
But
I don't
that
know.
should be the huge red flag. If you can't make it with all these guys healthy, like how the hell are you going to make it? Because like
Well,
you
it's
really
not
think they're all
entirely
going to be healthy
true though,
next year?
because again, these guys were not the problem. Like I know that you ran your little analyst report on the last 20 games on Crosby and Malkin, but that's not valid because these guys had great years. The whole
Production
top
is not
six did.
valid? How? How's that
Because
not
you're
valid,
only
bro?
looking at you were only talking about the goals in the last 20 games. I asked you
Yeah,
for the
goals
assists, you still
wins
didn't give it.
games, right?
Yeah, but
Like
so do big
if the goals
passes.
don't come, then you don't score.
But what I'm trying to
Like you
say
couldn't
is
score, right?
Crosby
You couldn't
does
score
not
against
always score. He's not
Chicago. You couldn't
Matthews.
score against all these teams. You keep getting shut out. Like that's goals, bro. Right? You don't
Yeah,
get assists unless the goals come, right?
That's you score
It's
any.
just
That's true.
yeah. So
but
like
here's the thing that I'm trying to explain is it's not always your top six. If your top six is producing,
Exactly.
you need the goals from your third line. You need your goals from your fourth line. You need the goal from the defenseman
Ah.
every now and then.
I think that's why we're
If
saying
you're
you
just
guys are
relying
not getting
on
any help. We said all year we were saying, why aren't they going for it? Like this doesn't make sense what they're doing.
well,
It doesn't make sense at all.
I said that a million times. It's just I'm not the guy running the team, unfortunately.
At the end of the day,
They went
you
Granlund.
guys went all in to try and get JT Miller. That was going to be your big move.
No,
That
would
would
have
have
done.
that
They
would
would
have
have
sent
been in
you
the
guys
same
over
situation.
No, it would have
that
been
would have
worse. Would
that would have
that would have been
relocated
a
you guys to Quebec.
disaster.
Yeah, would have been worse.
Yeah, it would have been
That
worse
would have
because
been a
we wouldn't even have
disaster.
a pick because they wouldn't have made the playoffs with
Yeah.
Miller not having Miller.
Well, even if they made the playoffs with Miller, you're not going anywhere. Like that's just what it comes down to.
No, he wouldn't
No,
have brought
but
it up.
if anything, it sets you back even further.
Yeah.
Like the next, I don't even know. Like that's a dangerous situation. Like I'm telling you, if I'm looking at this situation about how they handled that, like that was a total tilt move. He went for the big swing. That is a Burke move. Okay, getting Miller, that is 100% Burke. Like if I had to assess the situation, because that's something that Burke would do. He's just gonna swing for the fences. A guy like Miller is bread and butter, exactly a Burke guy, and they missed. And they're like, we can't not do anything, especially with the Islanders going out and getting Horvat. We can't just come back to this team with a nobody. We got to go get somebody. And they looked on the market and everyone was gone. So what was their last option? Like that to me was a mistake. You can't just okay, let's grab the next thing that's available on the rack. No, if it didn't fit your team, like the needs, and you can't just make these spontaneous decisions just because you're desperate. Like that's what it is. Like that smelled with
Yeah,
huge desperation for me.
Yeah.
Nobody even knew Granlund was available until that trade happened.
That I don't know. That was
I
crazy.
don't think anybody in their right mind was even targeting Granlund. I mean, especially without any contract being retained. The guy still got 2 more years at $5 million. And he's 31 years old. It was such a bad move. Okay, it only costed
Yeah.
a second, but it made no sense.
I would have rather have gone for like younger type players to see if they can like mesh with Malkin and Crosby, because then
sure.
at least you got like a 3 to 5 year window to with these guys to potentially help you. Like Kapanen was a like I know he didn't work out, but that's what type of deal you got to look for. You got to look for young guys that have talent, that have speed, that could play the current game.
How are you going to get them? But who are you going to give up for?
Well,
Yeah.
you gotta try. You gotta there's gonna be guys that they didn't work on, like Kirby Doc, right? He didn't work in Chicago. Okay, so take a shot and see if you could revitalize his career in Montreal. And he played great, right? What did that cost you? The first round pick that they got for what's his name? Romanov from the Islanders?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you know what I mean? Like
It was like a
those are the
middle.
type of
It was a 15th or 13th overall pick. I think.
yeah, those are type of things you need to do. Like I would rather take a shot at a young or mid-20 guy with like potential than these aging vets that
Well,
who knows? Like, I don't know.
that's the philosophy.
You go
though.
nowhere with this way.
Yeah, that's the philosophy though. But I mean,
Look, they made mistake after mistake, and you can talk about it for an hour. Like there's so many mistakes that they made in the short time they were here. Going back to the Carter re-signing, even the Raquel signing. Like I was happy when I saw it, but like the guy's 29. Like he was coming off a bad start with Pittsburgh. It was kind of a risky move. I would have brought him back for maybe a year or two, but no, they went and signed him long term. I know that probably kept the average down a bit, but you didn't have to go and trade and get Petrie. That was another one.
Yeah.
Why the hell did you trade Mike Matheson, who was one of your best defensemen last season, for an aging Jeff Petrie? It just everything that they've done makes no sense. Even the Ruda signing.
yeah, it
He's an
didn't work
aging
out.
defenseman.
It seems like nothing they did worked out.
Nothing
for
worked
sure.
out. The
Yeah.
Kapanen re-signing. Let's take another gamble on Kapanen because we've already taken two. What's another gamble on him? Didn't work out. They had Alex Nylander. Why the hell didn't he get his chance to play until the end of the season? I know that he's not a
Yeah.
superstar, but these are the guys that you should be taking a risk on. The guys in your farm.
Exactly.
Take a risk on. I would rather have Nylander played than Kapanen. He was $750 compared to $3.2 million. You would have got the same production, but at least Nylander's getting a chance to show himself. It's just
he's had a lot of chances.
Yeah, but a guy like Willie can at least he can keep up, and he can play. He's got the hockey IQ to play
You mean?
with the
Guys,
Sid.
look what we're talking
you know?
about, guys. We're thinking that guy's gonna help Pittsburgh make the playoffs and go on a cup
Yeah.
run. This is where my mind goes.
Yeah,
what are
I'm
we
with you.
doing here?
Yeah,
And I don't mean like us. I'm saying like, what the hell is your plan here?
Yeah.
I'm just
What
saying
is-
that
what is your plan?
Nylander made more sense going to the season than Kapanen.
Nylander
makes
couldn't even
no
play in
sense.
Chicago who had nobody. They were tanking and he couldn't even play there. How the hell is he
Yeah,
gonna play in
but-
Pittsburgh who's trying to compete for a playoff spot when you have guys like Sidney Crosby?
I
We're
actually
so-
I don't know what the problem with Nylander is because I've seen him play.
I know what it is.
I like him. I really have no clue why everybody is so hard on the guy. He's not a bad player.
He's inconsistent, Giancarlo. That's the problem. Like
Which Nylander
he
we
fades
talking
very
about?
quickly.
Which Nylander are we talking about now? 'Cause
Alexander
they all
Nylander.
have the same
Brother.
DNA.
Alex.
To me, they're all the
yeah.
same. But okay, Alex. Sorry.
The older brother, Willie, is a superstar in the league, so he's
Oh,
Will
not.
you
okay.
stop?
This
I
is
could
not a
never
It's not
leaf.
even that.
This is not a leaf conversation.
I don't know. I stay by my point. I go for the 750K Nylander who has some sort of upside than re-signing Kapanen at
For sure.
3.2, who's failed multiple times.
Sure.
So that's just where I go. And I know you guys beat up on Brian Rust. This guy is a guy who fit in Pittsburgh's system. He won
Player?
a cup with us.
He's good. He's good.
Right,
Why,
right.
who's
Yeah.
saying?
I did.
He-
I didn't like him. I said
He's
it.
a questionable top six. He's probably not a top six on any other team but Pittsburgh because he fits into the system. He's always worked with us. He had a rough year. And he's another one. He's aging, and they gave him a ton of money. Well, not a ton of money, but they gave him a long-term contract
Not with
And-
no trade clause.
with a no trade clause. Yeah. So I mean, that's another one that, and I don't think that Hextall's the one who gave him that contract. But I mean, he was gonna get that money. They rewarded him. He was always gonna get that money.
Sure.
I don't know what they're gonna do with Zucker now because Zucker's coming off
Well,
his best season.
so
he
that-
had a great season. Attention sport card enthusiasts. Looking for a convenient and reliable way to expand your collection? Look no further than Fanatics Collectibles Canada. This online shop is your one-stop destination for all things card sports, from vintage to modern, from football to hockey to basketball and more. They even got some bench warmers. The selection is second to none, featuring rare and exclusive players from top players and teams. Whether you're a serious collector or you're just starting out, they will have something for you. And with their easy-to-use website and secure online checkout, you can browse and purchase cards from the comfort of your own home at any time, any day. So why wait? Visit the online shop today at www.fanaticcollectibles.com and start building the collection of your dreams. With their vast selection, unbeatable prices, and dedicated community, you're sure to have a winning experience every single time.
Where do you see this team going, Giancarlo? Actually, let me rephrase that. What do you want from a new GM with this team, with this roster as it's currently assembled? What do you want
Well,
to see?
there's going to be a lot of cap space available because Dumoulin's 4.1 is out and Jari's 3.5 is out. And then there's a couple other contracts running out. I don't bring back Zucker. I like the season that he did give us, but I'm not giving this guy anything more than 3 million, and I think he can probably get 5 million somewhere else. So I move on from Zucker. That's almost 15 million in cap space there. That's a ton of cap space to play with. The first thing I'm doing is I need a goalie. I need somebody. Whether it comes through a trade, whether it comes through, I don't know who's available free agency wise this year in net. Goaltending needs to be addressed. If we go back to the start of the year with Jari, then I'm not even going to watch the Penguins this year because I already know exactly how it's going to play out. Jari's not the answer. They missed their window for trading him. So now they're just going to lose him for nothing, which I really don't care at this point. But they need a goalie. They start the next season with a goalie, and I'm happy. If they can find a way to trade Petrie, that's my next move because he's the second highest player on this team, and there's no freaking
Crazy.
reason why that he's the second highest paid player in this team. He's old and it's showing. So if there's any way that they can somehow get rid of him and recover that money, those are the first two moves I make.
How many years does he have left?
2.
Yeah, I guess
2 years at 6 million.
Yeah,
6.25
6.2 million. Not even 6 million.
Do you have
6.25
first rounder?
to
Do you have
be
first
exact.
rounders to throw away to dump that salary?
Well,
You
I
gotta
know.
pay. You gotta pay. I think you gotta play him, man. I don't think you can get rid of him.
Well, that's why I said if there's any way in hell that they can move him, if there's a
Why is
because
it?
hey, look, Pittsburgh was
blaming him?
interested in him. Pittsburgh was interested in him, so maybe
Yeah.
somebody else will be. Why am I picking on him? Because he's the second highest paid player on the team, and he's not even the 5th best player on the team.
It's true he's
So-
overpaid. I won't argue that, but and that's Bergevin's
If he was at like
fault.
3 million,
But
if he
he's
was at like 3
he's
4
a
million,
40
I'd be
point
happy.
he's a 40-point defenseman, and he was on pace for that this year. So that's I don't know what you want from a second pairing guy. Like that's pretty much all you can ask for.
It's the money. That's
Yeah,
my only.
he's
it's the money.
expensive. He's expensive. He's
Yeah,
overpaid.
He's too
Absolutely.
expensive for what he is.
Yeah.
If he was 10 years younger and he had more on his legs, sure.
Well, you're gonna
But
need
he's
someone
slow
to
out
play
there.
those minutes. No, he's not slow. You need someone to play. He's not slow at all. I don't know. Again, maybe he had an injury this year, but he's one of the quickest defensemen in the league. Actually, when I watched him when he was in Montreal, anyway.
Yeah,
he was a great
definitely
skater.
wasn't for Pittsburgh.
Well,
I won't bash his skating. He made a lot of very dumb decisions this year. I don't know. He
no,
didn't have
and,
a great year.
You're,
put
you're
it
just
that way.
looking at which salaries you can move in order to move something else in. But you got to realize that you got to bring something else in, right?
For sure.
So it's
for
not
sure.
it's not easy to just, as much as I was like, I wanted Montreal to move on from Petrie because he was too old for their opportunity to win, and that's why I wanted them to move on from him prior to them signing him. And I was furious when they signed him again because I knew it was going to be a problem. Thank God this GM was able to move him out, but it was like you have to realize that you have to. It really comes down to what you want your GM to do next, and whether you want to win with this core or whether you just want to sort of go into the sunset with this core, right? And then you say, how long is it going to take for you to, like, if you got a new GM coming in, and I'm assuming, has your stance changed on the fact that you want this core to win with Crosby and Malkin and Letang? Like, are you still going all in, or?
I want this team all in until Crosby says I'm done.
Okay. So
until
then,
Crosby says I'm done, whether he openly says I want to go to a different team or he retires, I want this team.
So
rolling.
Crosby's 35. He's got 2 more years after this year on his deal, right? Do you expect him to resign there, or is that it for him when he gets?
It'll come down to health because he's one bad hit away from the doctor telling him seriously, don't go back on the ice because he's already been told he shouldn't be playing. So he's one bad hit away from his career being done in terms of injuries.
And Crosby's the one that's actually coming up before the rest of them. Like Malkin's got a year after Crosby. Letang.
Well, they just re-signed them, right?
Letang
It's
is even
actually
further. Like,
Gensel's the question mark because Gensel's a free agent after next year, and
right.
I think he's going to want more money than $6 million because he's earned it.
He's a point per game player looking at his stats, so
He's led the team in goals for the last 3 years.
he's entitled to that money, to ask for that money too, right? And this was all part of again, these were all things that we knew. This is all stuff that the GM that was dealing with this knew. And
to answer your question, what I want to see happen is I want Jari gone. I want goaltending to be addressed because that's the biggest problem with this team. I want them to try and find a way to trade Carter and Petrie. If it can't be done, then we roll with them. That's fine. And then we're gonna need to bring in another defenseman, and we need to fix the bottom six. And Zucker, we gotta let Zucker walk as well. I don't want to see Zucker re-signed. I really do not want to see him re-signed. I can't see it working out for us with him coming back, especially because he's injury prone.
GM. That's a lot of work for a new GM.
Well, and this is what happens when you hire a crier to run the team. The guy made a mess. The guy made a mess in his city.
I don't know if he made a mess. I think he just made it worse. I think he just made it worse.
No,
I think
he made a mess.
Was happening.
The mess could have been salvaged. I could have salvaged a bloody mess.
But how many years was he a GM for?
1. Too many.
Okay, so before that,
who
was making your draft picks before that? If Mario Lemieux is such a smart
the guy in Vancouver.
Right? But my point is,
Patrick Alvin was involved.
No, but my point is, if Mario Lemieux is such a great person to work with, this and that, why can't he get a whole bunch of guys that can, draft better players?
Yeah.
What's a scouting team like?
We gotta remember this team hasn't really drafted players, and last year was the first time they drafted in the first round for a couple of years. They've only drafted
a lot of picks. They've given up a lot of picks for sure.
They've only drafted in the first round once or twice in the last 10 years or something like that. Like they don't draft often in the first round, so it's kind of it gets harder to draft outside of the first round. I'm
not going to deny that, but like I said, there's teams that find ways to pluck those. I mean, think about it. You have Crosby, you have Malkin, you have Letang. You don't need those superstars. You need guys that are going to fill those second, third line, and they haven't been able to bring them into your team.
Back then, they were getting lucky. Gensel was a third-round pick. Yeah, Gensel was a third-round pick. He wasn't a first-round pick.
Yeah,
not if you go through every roster. How many teams have all first-round picks playing? It's very rare. You're not going to find many. But my point is, Pittsburgh is not incorporated that core with the guys through drafting. They just haven't.
Yeah, they've been making trades, Dave. They're trying to fill those holes with trades.
Drafting hasn't been good, and then the good ones that they do get, unfortunately, they've traded, like Callan Anderson and Gustafsson. But yeah, they've had some really bad picks, unfortunately, and that's the nature of the beast.
I just don't see the Pittsburgh Penguins of old. When Pittsburgh was dominant, they were a scary offensive team. That was whenever I thought of Pittsburgh, it was whether it was Lemieux and Yager or Francis and Stevens and Tocchet and Larry Murphy. Like, these are the teams that used to scare the shit out of you when you played them. And then when they got Sid and Malkin, it was the same. It was scary to play Sid and Malkin. It was like, oh my God, here they come again. And everyone around them, even when they had guys like Martin Straka and whatever, like, everyone seemed to be offensive, right? It's like, holy shit.
Look at the names you're pulling out. Amazing.
Yeah, but it's like, those are the guys. Like, every single one of these guys was putting the puck in the net. And I don't feel the same way when I look at this Pittsburgh team. That's why I say, like, what are you trying to build? What is this? What is the identity of this team? Is it offensive? Is it a balanced team? I don't really get it, because a lot of these guys are kind of middle tweener guys that are getting paid $5 million looking at the salary structure, and all these guys are just that's what you get. Like, the guy might score 20 goals, but I'd really like to dissect how those goals get scored and whether they came in bunches or whether they were meaningless goals, right? Like, sometimes I want to look at stats like that, because I go, when I see it and you're just like, we have 5 30-goal men, I'm like, wow, on paper, that's pretty scary.
I over-exaggerated. We have 5 20-goal men, not 30.
Well, that's a big difference, man.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But high 20s.
Just a little.
High 20s.
The Leafs only have 4 30-goal men. How'd you guys get 5?
But either way, my point is that it's like that's what Pittsburgh used to be. It used to be that scary lights out offensive team, and maybe I don't know. I don't know if they've taken a
It's
step
true.
away, and you can't get those guys anymore because you have to draft early. But maybe that's what it is. I don't know, and maybe it's just not possible to get those guys, so they had to get anybody they could to fill in those holes. But this is what they are now. They're no longer that scary offensive team.
They're not. I think it comes down to drafting. I mean, what have we always said? Where are you going to find these superstars? You're going to find them in the top 5 now. It's very hard to
Yeah.
find them after the first round or late first round. So they've had them, but they're not drafting anything great around them.
Yeah, and
Like who's coming up through the system?
exactly,
I
and
never
like
hear anybody when they do top prospects coming up through the rank. You never hear anyone from Pittsburgh. Very rare.
Well, you'll hear Owen
But yeah,
Pickering. He's who they drafted last year. He's coming off a phenomenal year in juniors, and he looks like a good player. So I don't know. He might end up being trade bait, or he's somebody they hang on to, or maybe he even makes the team next year because our D line obviously is in need of help. So, and Pierre Oliver Joseph actually had a good year, and I like him. He's only a 23-year-old defenseman. Played his first full season with us. He was good. He had a good year. He had a lot of mistakes too, but I mean, you expect that from a young defenseman.
this is an old team, man. Looking at these guys on cap friendly, it's an old team, and
Yeah, well, they're the oldest team in the league.
yeah, this is a young man's game now. They got to find a way to get younger. I hear you with the goaltending. I would focus on the goaltending and the blue line because I think even offensively, but you got to decide what to do with Gensel. That's going to be decision number one, if you ask me. And
doesn't
Yeah,
Sid love him?
I know.
Doesn't Sid love him?
probably,
They're Batman and Robin.
That's what I mean.
They're one of the best duos in the league for chemistry. Like
Yeah.
the
it's
guy
going to be
is
very, very hard to move on from Gensel.
he's a point per game player for the past 5 years, so that's
He's my
nothing
favorite
to
player
sneeze.
on this team, so it'll hurt for me to see him leave. But
40
if that's a
goals,
piece that they
36
need to
goals.
move,
Yeah.
yeah, he's a hell of a goal scorer. But I mean, it's also I think he'd be a hell of a goal scorer anywhere he goes. But him and Crosby's chemistry makes him that much better,
Sure.
goal scoring wise. I mean, I don't know. It's tough, but you're right. There'll be a decision that has to be made because he'll probably end up being the highest paid player on this team.
Well,
if they re-sign
it's
him.
gonna come down to him. I feel bad for him because, well, mind you, I shouldn't feel bad. He won cups. He's 28 years old.
Yeah,
He's
he's
not.
got 2 cups.
He'll probably make more, but I think there's a chance he stays and becomes part of that, whatever you want to call it, retool. We'll call it a retool.
Well, if it's up to him, he'll stay because he loves it here and he loves playing with Crosby. He won't go anywhere. It'll come down to money, whether they offer him enough money for what he's worth, and if he wants to go get more somewhere else, or if the team doesn't make the playoffs next year again, then I think that he should move on because he's wasting his time at that point. So I don't know. You're right though. There's definitely a big decision to be made with him, and the next GM's gonna have a lot of work. Like Dave said, this team is an absolute disaster.
Salary wise, these guys aren't going anywhere. You got Rust, Granlund, and Raquel are
$5 million each.
They're 5+, yeah, and 2 of those 3 are extended like beyond 2028.
Well, and that's why I said I don't want to see Zucker come back.
Man.
Zucker's already made it clear that he wants to come back, and they're saying that it'll probably be around the $5 million range. I'm not giving him $5 million for 5 years. I'm not.
Wow.
He's 31 with so many injury problems. Thank you for giving us a great year, but see you later.
Yeah, this is a tough. Like Dave said, I wouldn't want to be a GM coming into this situation. I guess you never say no to a GM job, but it would be really tough to come in and try to put together a winner because you literally have those guys. And not that they're bad players, they're okay players. It's just they're older by the time those contracts, right? Like they're not going to get better as players. These players are not peaking. They're already on the back 9 of their careers. So
if Crosby goes down, that ship is beyond sailed. So I mean, the next GM's gonna have his hands full, and there's a lot of work to do here.
And maybe you guys can answer it. The Fenway Group, is that what they're called? Fenway Group, whatever they are.
Yeah.
Fenway Group,
are they like
Yes.
analytics driven? Aren't they analytics driven? So is that where this Dubas rumor keeps coming from?
Probably.
Okay, so things are making sense.
I love Tommaso's enthusiasm for analytics. It's great.
You know what? I don't mind numbers. I love numbers, right? I've always, but people need to understand that information is just like anything. It could be a good thing and it could be a harmful thing. If you
You
can't
can paint a picture.
just
Yeah.
I can paint any picture I want based
Yeah.
upon what I want you
Yeah.
to know.
Right.
Right? Like
Right.
it's just like a very good accountant can manipulate the numbers to make you look like it's not a loss,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, and it's the same thing with analytics. You could put whatever the heck you want, and it's just you got to be smart enough to know that not everything can be diagnosed through analytics. There's certain variables that just can't be equated into a spreadsheet. You know, it just you
Yeah.
can't put heart, will, desire, injuries,
Clutch. Yeah.
anything. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can't put that into an equation. So that's why you just got to keep it at a distance. Like, okay, it's cool. These things are good to know, and it helps with your decision making. But it can't be your everything. It
Yeah.
can't be like this is how I run my team. This is how I coach my team. Like if you're doing that, then what do we even need you for? Might as well just go
Just-
get a
Just
computer.
have an iPad on the bench and like
Yeah,
press the button. What line should come out next? Yeah.
Yeah, like one of those AIs just run the team.
ChatGPT.
Like what's
running
the
team.
point? Yeah,
Yeah.
ChatGPT is gonna run the team now.
The new GM of the Pittsburgh Penguins is ChatGPT. Hey, why don't we ask
There you
ChatGPT
go.
what they would do if they were Pittsburgh? if they were the
Listen to
GM?
this. Listen to this. The John Henry effect. Okay, John Henry is I don't know if he's the owner of Fenway. I don't know if you guys know that, or if you even know his name. But anyway, the John
Yeah,
Henry
yeah.
effect. The Red Sox finished dead last in the AL East last year, and apparently this season's supposed to be another disaster.
Oh boy.
Liverpool is finishing 8th place in the Premier League. They won't be playing European competition, including the Euro League, let alone Champions League. And they're on pace for the worst finish in almost a decade. And the Pittsburgh Penguins missed for the first time in 16
So
years.
is this supposed to be a pep talk? Like, what do you?
This is the John Henry effect, is what they're calling it. His NASCAR team has not been competitive for years.
This
Apparently,
guy.
they might sell Liverpool.
So do you know who John Henry is? Like,
No,
so
and
John
part of
Henry
me
is
doesn't want to.
he's the very definition of just a rich person that just likes to play with his toys, right? Like that's all it is. He's not like this big sportsman. Like he just loves all these sports. He just loves it because it's like one big show off. Like the scary thing, he's got unlimited finances, so
Yeah.
that's the one good thing. But in a salary cap situation like hockey, that doesn't get you nowhere. You know, you got to be smart. You can't be irrational throwing money around because that leads you into disaster.
Yeah, you'll just
Right?
lose it
So-
all. Yeah, you'll throw that
Yeah,
money away.
so I don't know.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what this article is that I've been reading is you pretty much nailed it there, and that's kind of what they're saying about him as well. And then the very last line of the article says, "So who owns the Pittsburgh Penguins?" So after what you just said, it makes sense. Like this article is also saying like, does he even care? Because yeah, you're kind of right. It's almost like he buys things. These are toys for him. They're just
What are
pawns.
just to give credit to the author of the article who wrote that article? And what's it called? Where'd you see it?
It's on Pittsburgh Hockey Now. It's from Dan Kingersley. He's a Pittsburgh analysis.
Good
I
stuff.
know him pretty well.
I like those sites. The Montreal has one too. Montreal Hockey Now. I think that's like a new thing. They got some good journalists on there. Like I'm really impressed with the Montreal stuff. So I'm pretty sure Pittsburgh is the same. I'm pretty sure they have a representative and journalist from every team.
I think Dan is a representative for him because he's a really big guy for Pittsburgh. So.
Yeah.
And he body checked Wayne Gretzky. He's got that on his Twitter bio.
Nice.